A note: following advice from Work-Life Imbalance may lead to action being taken by HR, your family, the authorities, or higher powers.
Welcome to Work-Life Imbalance, an advice show focusing on workplace and lifestyle issues. Any resemblance to actual advice, living or dead, or actual wisdom is purely coincidental. I'm your monstrous manager, Frank Eastman.
And I'm your lovable office companion, Derek Lewis.
Today, we'll be having a special year-end retrospective episode. So, Derek, how has this year gone?
You know, I think I personally have enjoyed this year quite a bit. This is probably one of my first creative endeavors ever. Like when I was younger, I was in bands and, had some creative outlet before, but I will say the podcast has been probably the longest running and most committed I've ever been to a project. And I will say, I sound like ass for all the listeners out there. I have been... In lieu of Frank getting his Christmas plague, I have gotten the Christmas plague in his stead.
I have passed it on to another. That's how it is, Derek. Every curse is like that. I have to give it to someone else. Now you have to give it to someone else.
Yeah, I have to find a fucking rube. I knew, okay, this ties in perfectly. Because, this whole year, I thought that we were cultivating a creative project together, but in actuality, you were just kind of shaping me to be the rube that would take over all the curses that were placed on you by various traveler women and old hags and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I have pissed off a lot of witches, and the curses laid upon me were many and thick, so I feel lighter.
Oh, wow. I don't know why, but that is the grossest, the curses were laid upon me were many and thick. Something about that phrase is terrible.
Well, that's because curses are definitely some sort of phlegmy substance on a spiritual level.
That's hitting especially close to home because of my current predicament. But no, I think that this has been... one of the more creative years that I've had. So I think it's been pretty fantastic. What about yourself?
I think for myself as well, it's probably the longest running single creative project that I have engaged in.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the first thing that I've done that I have put out into the wild on a regular basis.
Right. With some of the other things, it didn't really feel... it really didn't feel like the more time I put into it, the better it would be, I guess. But in this one, in this one, I definitely felt that, that contributing or devoting more time to it, to getting more comfortable speaking in front of a microphone and trying to just riff off of topics and things like that. The more I've done it, the better I feel I am at it. It's coming more comfortably, and I'm sure our listeners have probably a more apt understanding of whether or not I've gotten better at it. But I definitely feel like I've grown in my own space, whatever that is, and it's definitely been very fulfilling.
Yeah, I think that's true. I have definitely seen growth and an improvement in quality. That's one of the things that I've enjoyed. I can honestly say that over the course of the year, I have gotten better at making a podcast.
Right.
The first few episodes, I'm not necessarily I haven't gone back to listen to them, and I'm not ready to do that yet.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think we started out not too bad. I think my storytelling is probably the most pronounced thing that got better. And I'm still bad at it now, but that first story, I remember when we recorded the first episode, that was like a 12-minute story. Like it was just about a broccoli that emanated a fart smell. Like, how the fuck did I turn that into a 12-minute story? And not for amusing content. It was just I couldn't condense it. And I think the final product was still like 5 minutes, and it was still, I was still listening. I was like, fuck me. This
I wish this asshole would shut up.
That's what I said. And I was talking to myself, but it was so funny to listen to that. Cause I think, parting the curtain a little bit, like we had recorded a couple of times before that just to kind of, just kind of experiment with it and make sure that the first thing we recorded together wasn't the first thing we released, like just to have something we can put in the trash and say that we improved a little bit even before we started. So, that was not the first time we had recorded. So we were already kind of like iterating on like, okay, how do we do this? Like, really, I was very much so getting my sea legs because, you're an announcer for roller derby. I literally had never heard myself recorded before. Like it was so fucking strange. And it's been wild. Like it's been fantastic to kind of step out of my comfort zone and get a lot better. Not necessarily better. Like I'm not going to say that I'm doing any more than I thought I would as far as like quality of comedy. I'll leave that up for other people to assess, but I'm feeling more comfortable, and I definitely feel that I've found a voice, which I wasn't necessarily sure that I would. And that sounds strange to say, but I wasn't necessarily sure that I had much worth saying. And it's nice to find that there are some collection of people that find that, listening to me for an hour a week is worth their time and effort.
I walked into this wanting to do two things, and that was to make a good podcast and to stick with something. I didn't start podcasting in order to be a rich and famous podcaster or to, there's no sort of goal beyond the production, but I want that production to be good. Like that was the number one thing. There are enough podcasts in the world, and what I didn't want to do was like me and one guy talking at the laptop microphone in a giant empty room. Like,
right.
Not to denigrate anybody that's their podcast, but like, there's certain quality standards in the medium that I had heard from other parties, and I wanted to see if I could reach that level, if I could hit that, if I could hit that note.
Right. And I think we definitely have in a lot of respects. I think our quality has changed since the beginning, and I think in a lot of ways it's gotten better. Definitely our techniques have gotten better, and I'm on a little bit of a new setup because I got a new mic, so we're still dialing in some things on this, but I don't think we're anywhere near perfect. So we're just going to keep iterating and increasing our quality of engineering, and but that honestly that speaks to kind of like the technician in me of like, okay, well there's still a lot left to improve on, so let's keep improving. And it keeps me, interested in more ways than just producing a comedy podcast.
Yeah, and I think that comes from both of us having a background in software, and not just software, but in Agile, which takes a little bit from the Toyota Kaizen. Yeah, so that's relentless improvement. And that's one of the things that I think we just sort of, from a decade apiece or more in software, that's something that we have internalized to some extent. So I know that we approach the podcast with that same sort of mentality. Like,
yeah. And even if it started out okay, like okay was not really enough. Like, as long as things are okay, like there are so many things that we can improve on. And some things, I think I, in particular, have kind of gone back and forth where, some things will get better and then some things will kind of go by the wayside a little bit. I know that my cadence and things like that, because I have such stage fright. Like, this is such a weird thing for me to have done this podcast, because I'm so critical of the way that I talk and things like that. So I thought that it was going to just send me into fucking convulsions listening to my voice every week. And It did in the beginning. Like it was harsh in the beginning because I knew that my cadence needed work. Like I knew that it wasn't necessarily pleasant to listen to all the time. But I feel that I've made, a lot of strides and things like that. And I know there's still a lot more to do. Like I still, anybody that listens to the podcast knows I say too much. I say like too much. I say
what they
oh God.
don't know though is that I honestly I cut out 50% of your ums. I really do. I love you, dude.
Yeah, that yeah. And if you go back on the clip shows, I cut out the other 50%. Like I literally, like I'm not kidding when I tell you it takes like 25 hours to make one of those clip shows, because I am going through and I am taking out everything that makes us sound like assholes. And there's a lot. Like,
oh God, is there anything left?
Even after you do your tweezer work, I'm going in with an electron microscope and shaving off all the uhs and ums that I say, and it takes so fucking long. But because I want it to be a little bit more concise, and it's something that I need to work on even more. There are things we can do with editing to fix things that make lazy people. And I don't want to be a lazy content creator. Yeah, but no. I've been allowed to be.
No, and I agree. Like I try to bring a certain snappiness to things, and I'm perhaps a little slower on the draw than I could be. And that comes, I think, to some extent from my background in roller derby. I'm used to announcing in a stadium sort of setting. And if I speak too quickly, then I get a lot of bounce and echo, and you can't necessarily understand anything that I'm saying.
Right.
And so I have a tendency to, sort of speak at a slow shout from my roller derby experience. Which
is terrible with me, because if anybody stops talking, Derek's going to start talking.
Derek's got to fill that silence, man.
Got to fill that silence. But yeah, I think we've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot about kind of our comedy pairing. Because before this whole podcast thing, like you and I had been kind of traveling for work a lot together, and so I think we definitely made each other laugh.
Yeah,
and this whole thing, as you kind of described it to me, was to kind of see if we can get on a recorder and make each other laugh and make other people laugh too. And yeah. I think that has been the goal, and I think it's gone well. I think it's been a wonderful exercise in that.
We had good chemistry, and not in like a sappy romantic way, but I think, we sort of, hey baby. But And it was just one of those things, like I had been giving thought to doing a podcast, and then like it sort of came to me one day while we were driving in the car that one of the things that I had seen were business-oriented podcasts, but not really shitty comedy advice business podcasts.
Right. They were totally straightforward, like here's how to grow your business, not here's how to make sure that you get fired at work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's definitely been fun, and I think that we're going to continue. Going into 2019, I think, as you and I have talked about, we're going to continue to kind of evolve and keep trimming some things down that don't necessarily work like we want, and things that and try to, as weird as it sounds, like try to bring more value to listeners and things like that. And I think that there are some things that we want to experiment with and try to just try to find something that will be a good mixture in the end.
Yeah, I don't think it's weird. Like the same Kaizen, like that relentless improvement. I think we bring a lot of the software engineering background that we've got to the podcast in the first place. Like our methodologies, I treat this like a project at work.
Right.
And I think we're constantly looking for, is this the tone we want to set? Is this the topics that we want to be covering? Are these elements of the podcast working? Are there bits we want to cut? Are there bits that we want to add? Because what we started with is not necessarily what we've ended the year with by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely.
Like one of the first things that we did, and it was because I had wanted to, was the elevator to accounting. Just because I had this vision of the elevator sound effect.
Right.
Like hand up, that is the thing that I was like, I really want to do an elevator sound effect with our theme song as elevator music, because our theme song is a bossa nova elevator music sort of jam.
Right.
And I wanted to do that. And then it was, I don't know, maybe halfway through the year, we reflected on it and we're like, I think at this point we're just doing elevator to accounting because I wanted to do an elevator sound cut. And is that a good enough reason to keep something in the fucking show? Right.
And I think that we kind of figured out that no, it probably isn't. And to be honest, that's kind of what ended up happening with the Indie Podcast Corner is that, I wanted to share kind of share the space a little bit with the indie podcast community, which we are absolutely a part of. Like, I'm not saying that we are giving a platform to people who are beneath us. Far from it. We are right there with everybody. But just kind of
we are the hoi polloi.
Right. Well, just have an opportunity to let people experience other things that we like, and other podcasts that I had found, and things and people that I had interacted with, and really wanted to get their stuff out there too. And it was a nice experiment. I don't think we helped anybody. Like, I don't think we got anybody else any listens. Like, there are some funny yucks. Like, I think that some of the jokes from the Indie Podcast Corner that just happened organically were some of the funniest things that we had in the show. But it wasn't necessarily worth like keeping around. Maybe not. And to be honest, like the last few, I think that I was kind of the mind that I would continue doing the Indie Podcast Corner specifically to be a musical outlet, because I created that shitty, awful jingle for the Indie Podcast Corner. And I loved it because it is so bad, but like there's a difference between like something being like ironically bad and like this is as good as I can make it. And it was kind of caught in the middle of that. And
don't
now
show
I've got
your
like
hand, Derek. Don't show your hand.
Now I've got like a MIDI keyboard, and I've created a few other songs and things like that. Like I did the intro for the for all the horror.
Yeah, the Halloween special.
Yeah, the Halloween special. And sure, that was like, something that was like only like 15 seconds or something like that. But it was far better quality, and like some of the trial and error stuff that I'd done for like the next iteration of Indie Podcast Corner jingle, it really gave me a musical outlet that I enjoyed. And I think it was something that was important for me, that I had that kind of, I don't know, that totem to do something for, I guess. But then I realized, it's silly for it to be that. Like, I can find something else for it to be that. Like, I don't have to keep the Indie Podcast Corner around and make everybody listen to like 10 minutes of stuff that they don't necessarily care about. Like, not that the podcasts that we were sharing were things that people shouldn't care about, but like, I don't necessarily think that it was doing what it was intending to do. And I can get my musical creative fix some other way. Like it got me over the hump of like, I never have done music before. Like, this is really uncomfortable, to like, now I have the momentum to where if I can just create music for like stuff that I want to do. And that was important for me. And now I don't necessarily, I don't feel like subjecting our listeners to, to my limping along with my musical stuff. So
yeah. And
at least not right now.
When we got there, I think we sat down and we took a look at it, and we were like, this is tonally and subject matter wise very different than the rest of the show. And what do we want the show to be about? And is this kind of I worked in advertising for a while, so is this on brand? Is this on message? Right. And I think we decided not really. Like, it's nice to be able to engage with the independent podcast creator community and try to help folks out and stuff. But it's just kind of like getting the jam in my peanut butter and jelly. It's like it's not a bad thing, but we've already assembled a sandwich.
Right. Now I want a sandwich.
I'm out of bread.
But yeah, so there are some things that we've done away with, and I think that we're going to come up with some pretty decent stuff for 2019. And we'll probably debut it pretty soon, but we'll just try some more things out. And as folks have feedback for us, if you guys ever want to say, hey, I really like this thing, or hey, I really didn't like this thing, feel free to shoot us an email at feedback@wlicast.com. Because we love interacting with listeners, and a lot of the podcast community and things like that has been very vocal and helping us kind of fine tune some things and giving us feedback where we want. But if anybody ever has any comments or just wants to say anything to us, just feel free to shoot us an email, because we're always happy to listen, and if that's kind of if that's the impetus to change, like if that helps us make the podcast better, we're always for it.
Yeah, that's been one of the more interesting things to me is I don't know why. I had this mindset, I was putting this thing out into the ether, and I was not necessarily expecting a response. But to then get a response, I was like, wait, someone noticed that we changed something, and then they wrote us a message about it. I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah, the look on your face was pretty interesting whenever you were like, wait, somebody listened and like had an opinion about something that we changed? Like, what the fuck is this?
And it was nice. It was weird, but it was nice. It was like, well, okay, cool. I have not had that experience before where someone has come in and been like, you changed this, and I don't know if I like it.
And the outpouring for when you got laid off.
Oh, man, that was...
That was such a weird, like, it was such a perfect, like, for content wise, like, it was a perfect three week, like, there was complete turnaround story. Like,
yeah, it was a 3-part arc, and it wasn't made up. Like, it just so fucking happened that, like, I got laid off, and we recorded an episode. I started interviewing for jobs, and we recorded an episode, and then I got a job, and we recorded an episode, and it was like, well, okay then.
I mean, we could not have timed that better if we had tried, and it was so funny and so organic, but like the input from the community said, hey, oh my God, is Frank okay? I mean, that was wild. Like I thought was. It warmed the cockles of my heart to an extent that maybe I don't expect it to warm Frank's as much. There's a lot more work to do on the cockle warming, but yeah, it definitely was. It was nice. Like, it was something, like you said, it wasn't something that we expected.
Yeah,
and to have that in whatever extent was really cool, and I loved it. And it was like, you know what, fuck it, if we get like 2 people that love this thing, like, I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off. Like, I'm gonna keep doing it until we piss off both of them. So
that thing, like, when I got laid off, I was like, this sucks, but at least I can get some comedy out of it. That's sort of how I approached it. Right. Hey man, when you're down, just go ahead and kick yourself in the nuts, and then save everybody else the trouble.
Right, and kick yourself in the nuts. Make sure that you're recording, so that at least you can get on America's Funniest Videos or something like that.
And like, the last thing I expected was people to care. If that made, like, I know that sounds sort of weird and mildly sociopathic, but That just wasn't my brain space. My thought going into it was, this sucks. Well, maybe I can make it funny. And then people responded with like, oh my God, is Frank going to be okay? And I was like, oh, now I honestly feel a little bad for putting that out there. Like I didn't want anybody to feel bad for me. I was not like, I don't want anybody's pity, but just like, I didn't want to alarm anybody. That wasn't my intent.
Right.
I had just been like, this will be funny.
Yeah, the panic was somewhat exaggerated just because, like, you know, it wasn't like you were going to crash and burn. Like, you were going to find a job. It wasn't going to be that bad. But, like, for the comedy, like, it was perfect to really play it up. But then to, like, have people legitimately worry about your well-being, it was so weird and so heartwarming.
I mean, it could have gone bad. It ended up working out fairly well, but it was one of those things. Like even after I got the job offer, I was kind of like, I better not say anything about it so that I don't jinx it.
Right.
But it all worked out in the end, and so that was nice, and kind of as we had said that. It just amusingly lined up into a 3-part arc.
So I think this is a pretty good segue, because one of the things I want to do with the year-end retrospective is just to give each other an opportunity to kind of talk about the kind of bit by bit or segment by segment what some of our favorite moments for those segments were. So Frank, let's start with the daily stand-up. So for the daily stand-up, what was your favorite bit that we did?
I mean, the daily stand-ups that really spring to mind, that stand out, probably number one is the one that we did after I had to do some plumbing in the bathroom. And I think just because the plumbing in the bathroom sort of situation in its entirety still haunts my dreams.
Right. So it's less for comedic purposes, more about just your existential nightmare that continues to this day.
Yeah, every once in a while I sit bolt upright in bed and go, oh God, no, not the black goo.
Oh, the devil's ichor has come to haunt me again. Oh, no, that was a fantastic one. And I will say, I've rarely let myself get so immature, but like, every other statement you made had some sort of like, could have been like a double entendre or innuendo. And yeah, that was fantastic.
What about you, Derek?
So for mine, I think hands down, it has to be the one about fucking Chuck Tingle. Because, you know, the thing is, like, there have been a few that you have brought up that caught me completely off guard. I mean, some of them might not have been, you know, quite as wild as that one, but you know, a lot of things that you've brought up have caught me off guard. None have caught me off guard quite as severely as that. Like I listening back to that episode, the first, I don't know, 5 minutes of that episode, I was struggling to coalesce a goddamn thought. Like I couldn't. I was like, "Am I hearing this?" Like, there's a guy that's writing like trash porn fiction, and you know and like people are reading it, and so like 5 minutes in, like I finally could coalesce thoughts, but like the whole part about the name of the podcast. When I listen back to that, it still just makes me laugh so hard, because the thing is, like, you are literally like, you in audio form, you are hearing my mind be blown and like my soul dying a little bit with the name of that fucking podcast.
Derek was changed that day.
Like, that is not me hamming it up. That is me like legitimately just being like, of course it's fucking called that. One of the most genuine reactions to anything that we've had on this podcast, and it still makes me chuckle to this day.
Some of the stuff that I try to bring interesting things to the table, and I try to do so like one of the things that we set out to do was to do a podcast that could definitely be blue, but not mean. Like,
right.
And it could be me, like, definitely with my personality, we could come at it and turn it into a Mean Girls podcast. But that's not really us. And I think, that's one of the things that we've wanted to do over the life of the podcast. And I haven't gotten a ton of response in terms of, like, folks dialing in to say that they're, horribly offended by a bit or something. And that's, like, comedy is unexpected. Like, that is the comedic thing. Like, comedy is moving in a direction and then taking a sharp left turn into the unexpected.
Right.
And I think, when you're doing that, invariably you're going to either offend somebody on purpose or accidentally, or you're gonna bomb really bad and come at something and then be like, that was ooh, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, and I think we've tried really, really hard to not offend where it wasn't due. Like, there are some people that I don't mind offending, but it's because for stupid choices they've made, not for who they are or the things they espouse, or maybe for things they espouse. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely for things they espouse. But I mean, we can jack up individuals. I think I'm fine with that, especially people making, like, really poor or not nice decisions.
Right. That is fair game. But, like, just in general, like, I'm not trying to set out and like offend anybody, especially with, like, blue humor, which if anybody has been listening since the beginning, like, like, our first fucking episode was about, like, work wankers in the bathroom stalls. Like, we did not like falsely advertise what this was going to be.
Oh yeah, no.
Like, if you've been here from day one, you know what the score is.
This didn't start out as my TEDx talk and then go way off the rails.
Just devolve into dick jokes. No, it started with dick jokes. And I will say, like, so I know we're not really doing what our least favorite was, but I will say that for the deep dive, the one that concerned me the most was episode 35, the bathroom spectacular, because I had thought about that topic of finding your favorite restroom when you start a new job. I had marinated that in my mind for no shit. Like, what would you say? Like 3 months, 4 months?
Yeah. That was
something
something that you had been wanting to do for a while.
Like, I had been thinking about it for so long, and I think it's still one of our lower downloaded episodes, like, in that time frame. It really felt like a referendum on me. like I am presenting my most true, genuine self to the world, and they're saying, we don't want your poo. And that it hit me a little bit. So I was like, okay, I get it. That is... There's a difference between a sprinkling of blue and, like, just like
full episode. And I like, that's the birth of the bathroom spectacular. And yeah, behind the curtain, that was one of our lowest downloaded episodes, and I was not expecting that. Like, I would not have produced it and put it out had I honestly thought it was going to bomb or anything. Not that it bombed, but, like,
yeah, it's still in the neighborhood, but it's definitely not like, I thought that was going to be the one that took us that got us to, like, our next milestone. I thought we were going to ride that wave straight into Hollywood or something.
This is our meal ticket, baby. Here we go.
Like, this is the one. Everything else is going to be gravy. We'll just gotta land this one.
And like, I had gone through, and, early on we had a lot of questions that were about the workplace and the restroom.
A lot.
And
a lot.
A lot.
Like half.
Yeah, like 50% of our questions were like, what do I do when I got to go to the pooper? And
which, I mean, I that made me feel vindicated because I was like, people care about this.
We must give the people what they want.
Right. Maybe just not like 90 minutes of it. Like,
yeah, and that's my fault. Like, because that was my bad, y'all. Because I went in and I was like, Derek, this is going to become our brand, Derek. Like, we don't get to control this, Derek. If our first 20 episodes are just us answering bathroom questions, it's not going to be a work podcast. It's going to be us talking about people using the bathroom. And I don't know if, like, even if we get famous, I don't know if that's what I want to get famous for, Derek.
Right. That's not really what I envisioned our brand to be. And you did like for both senses of the word, like it was a culmination of like of decisions that we'd made because, you know, I wanted to do that topic so bad. But we like questions just kept piling up. So we had like 10 questions and we didn't get to many of them. Like we still ended up like leaving half of them on the floor, but like we had to make decisions like, okay, are we going to do a whole episode of like nothing but bathroom stuff? And I was like, fuck yes, we are. So we did it. And like, I don't know, I expected something different. Like I wanted it to be, kind of that like, okay, let's get out of our system type of thing. I don't know. I guess.
Yeah. When we launched that one, I honestly did so in one of those, my mean at that point was like, okay, here it goes. I've finally resigned myself to, we're going to release the Bathroom Spectacular. People are going to like the Bathroom Spectacular a lot. And then that's just going to be what we do. Like, it's going to be Frank and Derek's Poo podcast.
And see, that's what I was trying to coalesce a minute ago. Is that essentially like we had put it off and we had kind of concentrated it in this one area, and you were concerned that would kind of be our brand. Me, I was like, I don't care, Frank. I want to be me. You can't control me anymore.
You can't hold it in forever.
You can't hold it in forever. You can't hold the poo in forever, Frank. But yeah, you did like multiple times, like tell me, save it for the bathroom special. And I was like, okay, I'll save this thing. And rightly so. Like we don't need to be potty humor wall to wall all day, every day. That's me. Like I that's how my brain thinks. But you know, that's not what everybody's coming for. And I get that. We want to be somewhat non-lowbrow in some respects. So, but yeah, so we saved it up. We put it all in one episode, and it didn't do quite as well as we would have thought. Or I don't think Frank was necessarily disappointed that wasn't the one that took us, to fame. But I did feel a little bit like it was a referendum on me, because that was like, if any episode was more me than anything else, it's that one. And I'll let that speak for what it speaks to, but that's the truth. Like,
maybe we'll make a spinoff Poocast, man.
No, there's a couple of those, and I don't know if I want to be those, but that's fine. That's fine. More power to them.
I haven't ever looked into it, but I should have known.
You should have known. All right, so that took way too long to get through that. I did not expect that to be as lengthy of a conversation as it was. All right, so what was your favorite deep dive?
Some of our early deep dives, I think, had a lot of energy in them.
Right.
That I think sort of began to peter off. Like the deep dive has always been problematic for me because it speaks to, like, I used to be a teacher, and when you actually give me a serious topic to talk about, I turn into a pedantic ass.
Right.
And I just, and it's like the deep dive, I want it to be funny, but it also is definitely a serious topic sometimes, and I can't resist the preachable moment.
Right. And I think we definitely, I think we kind of stepped on ourselves a little bit, because it is something that, with a topic that we could actually talk to, I think we ended up having so much to say that was not necessarily a joke, that it kind of pushed out some of the funny to the extremities a little bit, and that wasn't necessarily what we had intended. We wanted it to be both, but the thing is, like, we are legitimately passionate about some of the things that we had to talk about. Maybe that's a negative, I don't know, but it definitely, if we had had more focus, I think we could have gotten both the funny and the serious, but it didn't necessarily pan out in some respects like we had expected.
Yeah, and I think that was sort of my takeaway. Like, there's some little nuggets that come out of, I think, Office Animals and things like that, I'm like, I look back on those and I go, that was a lot of fun to do. I think it was really funny. And then some of them I look back on and I'm like, oh, fuck, I wish this guy would shut up.
Yeah.
So, Derek, what was your favorite deep dive?
Honestly, my favorite was probably, I would say, coworkers that don't understand body language, which was episode 9. Honestly, I think that was the funniest one for me, because of, like, the execution and some of the bits around it. But the fact that I was like, so it was such a fraught topic for me, because I really enjoy people. Like, I enjoy interacting with people a lot. And for me to admit, like, there are times when I want people to go away. Like, that was kind of a weird place for me. But I think that, I think overall it was an interesting enough subject, and it's something that's so universal, for people to be like, hey dude, I'm working, please stop talking to me, and then not getting the picture. I think it legitimately felt like that's the one that's going to be cathartic for somebody. Like, somebody is going to listen to that episode and they're going to be like, oh, finally somebody talking about coworkers that won't leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah, I think that one turned out pretty well.
All right. So let's move on to your favorite question from the audience that we have covered.
Yeah, my favorite question was from episode 9 with the inflection at the end of the questions. And that was only because of the bit where I hadn't intended to troll you quite as hard as I did.
And it was so fucking effective.
I'm internally amused. I was just sitting there behind the mic, like, clapping softly to myself, waiting for you to get it.
And the thing is that I feel that's less a comment on you and more a comment about me, because I am so, like, gullible and oblivious, and you really took advantage of that. And I'm not pleased with how our friendship has turned after that.
A trust was broken.
It was, because the thing was, like, I was in the moment. We were talking about Saved by the Bell, and I was like, okay, what are the other characters Saved by the Bell? I was doing my due diligence and trying to answer that fucking question. And lo and behold, you were just trolling me not the whole time, but, like, you were throwing some curveballs, and I wasn't. They were just beating me in the fucking head. And I was like, and my response is, I promise you, that is 100% organic response to that fucking thing. And I felt it was a combination of relief and anger after I realized what you were doing, because, like, the feelings I was feeling were very angry, very upset at my friend Frank. And I also felt dumb, because I was like, am I like just saying stupid shit here? Like, am I not speaking the right information here? A lot of feelings. And then for you to just be goofing on me, it's taken a long time to rebuild that trust, Frank.
Yeah. Sometimes it be like that, Derek. What about you? What was your favorite question from the audience?
My favorite question from the audience, I'm gonna say I forget the title of it, but it was a guy who his boss had a picture of him like helicoptering his wiener, and like he's trying to figure out how to milk that for all it was worth from his boss. That is one of it was a chance to go blue, and I think we showed restraint. I don't think we went nearly as blue as we could have. So I was very proud of us, of how we handled that very dicey subject. And what was because often we'll come up with like techniques of how you can handle these things. And one of them was like, during a meeting, if your boss starts getting uppity, you can just pantomime a spinning hot dog, or like you have a hot dog in the meeting and you just like kind of twirl the hot dog a little bit, and that'll get him to agree with you. And I'll tell you what, that has been so indispensable since we did that episode. It's gotten me out of so many binds, and honestly, it's kept my boss very very honest, and I'm very appreciative of her work.
Although I still hold to, you've only got the one pack of hot dogs, and at this point, they're getting a little elderly, Derek. People are shutting up less because you're asking them to shut up, and more because you're just waving around a rotten hot dog.
I'll wave my rotten hot dog around all I want, Frank. Oh. All right, so for the issue from the internet, which one was your favorite?
This one's a hard one. I don't...
No, it's really not.
Is it not?
There's a clear winner. It's the one about the sex butt. It is clearly, I forget which episode it was, but it was the one where somebody had a $700 sex butt in their car, and their car got stolen or broken into, and they had to figure out how to claim their $700 sex butt for the insurance. That is one of the funniest fucking things that we have ever said, and the amount of laughing that I did during that episode was just amazing. And it's the one that always jumps out to me as our best so far. And I think honestly our best idea for like a spin-off of any TV show, which was like, embarrassing cash cab. Like, I think that would work out fantastically.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the funniest bits that we did. And the one that comes in for me also is kind of a second place was the daughter bought a tank.
Oh, I will say, tank's price to move was one of the funniest things that we have said on this podcast, because I still today go back and listen to that, and it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous, and to this day, I'm not sure if that question was real, and I'm going to say that it had to be not, but it was just it was such a fun place to be, to pretend that it was for a minute,
right?
Yeah, so
it was a fun space to play in for a little bit, and I definitely intend in 2019 to kind of find more like that, because I think that was a very fun type of question to explore, because it probably was not a true one. Like, there's some places on the internet that you can find some made up shit. Like,
Derek,
I know that.
Are you trying to tell me that sometimes people on the internet don't tell the truth?
I don't want to be the one to tell you that, Frank. But
next you'll be telling me that there's a lot of porn on the internet.
Come see me after class.
Is there like any of the bits that we've done? Are there any bits that you just look back on and go, God, I wish we hadn't done that?
Don't you fucking attack me, Frank Eastman. Oh God. Yeah, the worst one by far. It fucking haunts me to this day. Episode 6, my fucking Hey Alexi bit, I cannot describe to you the depths of sadness after we were finished with that one. I was so fucking proud of that bit before we started. I was so proud of that bit before we started, and I have never had something fall apart so quickly. Like, like that was me, like on the starting line, revving the engine, and the whole car fucking exploding. Like that was bad, and I wanted it to work so bad because Frank, to be honest, like, okay, that bit turned out terribly. I practiced my Russian accent for a week. And it was not enough. Like it was not good. But I felt so bad. I was like, this is how the podcast ends. Like
I killed it.
We've been in it for 6 weeks and I'd done killed it. I was really sad after that one.
Oh God, I remember that, man. Oh, and I guess if I were a better person, I might have left it on the cutting room floor.
But it's not like we had a backup. Like there would just been an entire section of the podcast missing, and then people wouldn't have known why I sounded so ashamed the rest of the episode. Really, you couldn't cut it for continuity.
Why does Derek have a sadness about him?
why is Derek crying? All right, so what was your big bomb that you were not pleased with after we were done?
The only, there's one bit that I did get some negative feedback on, which was like my King of the Hill sort of, my subordinates need to be crushed beneath my iron heel.
Uh-huh.
And like, I was told that it very much marks me as like a douche code bro. And that's not necessarily the flavor that I want to put into the world. Like I am not a code bro by any stretch of the imagination in any direction.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, I think most people understood like that was you definitely playing to your persona in some cases. Like,
yeah, like there is a part that I play and I play to that part. I'm not saying that it is not an authentic me. I am an authentic me. But I am definitely not a douche bro. And to have like come across to anybody in that way, I was just kind of like, oh. Fuck.
Yeah, I get that. Like there are certain things that we're trying to project, and we're going to ham up some certain things. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to like project like truly like negative things that will make people feel bad. Like that's not what we're here for. Like we're not.
Yeah, we're here for comedy. Like
right.
If I'm doing it, I'm doing it for the funny. I'm not doing it like at no point am I saying that everybody else should be crushing their subordinates beneath their heel. Like,
right.
That darkness is for me alone.
Right. It's only for true professionals. Don't try this at home, folks.
And I mean, there's some parts of the podcast that I don't know if I have questions about, or there are areas that we've explored that I think have had the potential to take a hard turn and just go screaming off into like a bad part of town. Like,
absolutely. And there were some topics that we were covering where I was like, at any moment, I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth and we're going to have to erase 45 minutes of fucking work. Like, I legitimately was worried that, at some point I would fuck a topic up so bad by saying something unintended and it becoming something other than what it was. And that definitely was something I was very concerned of. And I'm glad that for the most part, it seems that we have avoided that. And we constantly strive to do that. Like anything that we say that we feel, ooh, that hits the ear really wrong. Like that's not, I know that's what I said, but that's not what I meant. That type of thing. Like we don't want any of that to make anyone feel disparaged or disenfranchised or anything. And so we're very sensitive to that. And but it was a big fear. Like it was a huge fear of mine because I am nothing if not famous for sticking my foot in my fucking mouth. Like,
yeah, like
I think if you'll find most of my pictures from high school and college, they're literally me chewing on my shoes because my foot is planted firmly in my mouth.
Like, I think it could be said that we have not necessarily been as cool as possible to furries.
No, man, we goofed on furries, but then we had some funnies at the expense of the furries for sure. But I'm going to put it out there. Like, furries are cool, man. Y'all keep doing your thing. I mean, we may laugh. Honestly, I think if anybody we've disparaged, I think we've disparaged juggalos. At least in the beginning.
I think we weren't kind to juggalos. Positive juggalo cover. It's sometimes hard to positively cover juggalos, though. But, which is not a diss on juggalos. Just sometimes you're like, guys, you're not making this easy. Like, put the hatchet down. The optics on that are just real bad.
Just real bad. We don't want things that people identify with that are not shitty to feel shitty about identifying with them. I think it's a pretty good generalized statement.
And it's hard to be inclusive when it's two straight white guys with a podcast. Like,
yeah.
I mean, we're not necessarily bringing the LGBT Latinx viewpoint to this or anything. Like, there's not a lot of demographic variety going on with the podcast hosts.
And that's absolutely true. And not to say that like we would turn down, folks being on a podcast that are a part of those groups. It's just that like I don't think they care to. Like
yeah, I don't know. Like maybe that'll be next year. Maybe perhaps it'll just be like we slowly fade to the background and suddenly this podcast is hosted by like
cool people.
Damn it, Derek. But I still feel like we should be able to discuss some of these topics. Like I'm not so like some of the stuff that could have gone terribly wrong were like Big Dipper.
Oh yeah. That was that when we finished that bit about Big Dipper, I felt so like body positive for the rest of the day. Like I felt so loved by that song. It was all about big fat hairy guys, and I was like, oh,
somebody loves us.
Somebody loves me.
Exactly. And I think like that's a way that we can come at something, and like I think that's cool. I don't think anybody's going to necessarily have a problem with it. We're not like co-opting anybody's cultural signifiers or anything. Same thing with like Cockring Ken.
I think I was concerned, like, because you're right. That's one of the ones that could have gone into the weeds real quick. But I think that my genuine fascination with that topic kind of kept us on the rails because I was like, I couldn't think of anything else to say. I was just amazed. I was like, tell me more, Frank.
That was what I wanted to do with that one. Like that one wasn't like, let's hold up this gay Barbie doll and laugh.
And make fun of it. Yeah.
No, it was... the execs at Hasbro or Mattel or whoever the fuck it is that makes Barbie, like, legitimately went out and tried to find the coolest thing in 1993 and accidentally made a gay Ken. Like the coolest thing, they're like, that is cool. That is the epitome of coolness. And all the gay guys were like, did they just release a gay rave doll?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I mean, I really liked those bits. I think those bits were good. It was just one of those things where it's like, I feel like I'm walking on the precipice. Like, at any point, we can just be like, and whoops, we're assholes.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was one about talking about an inclusive work environment where they were talking about like shirts for the gay pride parade, and somebody had made a bad read, and or they didn't know what somebody was saying by like asking like, do you want a shirt for the gay pride parade or something like that. And I don't even think we really got to talk about the topic, because I made like such a big mistake by thinking that you were saying something about like I think the question actually talked about being in on the gay banter. And
yes.
I thought you said banner. And
it took me a minute. Like, we were sitting there on like, we're live and doing the thing. And it took me quite a while to realize that mistake had happened.
Right.
And so at that point,
it was far too late to correct it. And like, I felt so ashamed after we were done. Like, I don't even think we finished. I think we like got it reached the end of the bit, and you're like, Derek, I said banter, not banner. And I was like, oh, fuck me. God, I felt so ashamed. I was like, because like it turned out like fine, but like clearly not what the question was actually about. And I'm sorry. I gave people advice for being included on banners, but not about the banter.
I mean, hey, at least now people have advice on what to do if someone wants to be included on the gay banner.
Yes. Sometimes you give people what they need, not what they asked for.
Exactly.
God. I'm feeling so much secondhand shame from this. God.
That's what a retrospective is for, Derek.
See, I know all retrospectives are like what went well, what didn't go well, what can we do differently. I expected it to be more of the first and the third, less of the second. I'm feeling a lot of shame. Some of the things that I have borked this past year.
We'll process our emotions together offline, Derek.
That sounds good. So yeah, thank you to everybody for kind of chilling with us on this episode a little bit. I think I know this is definitely a weird one, and we probably should have put this like at the beginning of the episode that this is going to be a weird one. But yeah, I think that it was it's been a fantastic year for this creative endeavor, and I think that it's added a lot to my life, and it's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward very much so to 2019 and beyond, and continuing to grow it and just do something that people will enjoy, and it's been very fun.
Want to punch the clock, Derek?
It's called an organic clock punching, Frank.
Yeah, okay, I guess we can do it without reading the postscript.
I was going to do that too.
Fine.
I was letting my feelings out, Frank.
I don't like emotional vulnerability, Derek. You know this about me. I have walls in place.
They're there for a reason. Yeah, let us punch that clock for the last time this year. All right, so questions. Obviously, we have answered a lot of questions this year, and you guys have been fantastic at sending them in, but they are the lifeblood of our show. So if you would, in 2019 and beyond, please continue to send us in questions at questions@wlicast.com. We appreciate every single one of them, even if they're poop related. I know we disparaged some folks at the beginning or towards the middle, whenever it was.
I'm not disparaging them, Derek. I was disparaging you.
Disparaging the poo. If you want to connect with us, we have WLIcast.com. We have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. We don't update that often. Patreon.
I didn't even know we had an Insta.
We have an Insta. The thing is, like, we're an audio medium, and
now what are we going to take pictures of? Two fat guys eating wings or something?
That's the concern. Like, that's really what I was so concerned about. Like, I don't know if I want to even like. I don't want to risk that. Like, I would hate for it to become that. Yeah, all of our patrons on Patreon, thank you so much. we didn't necessarily expect or set out this year to grow patrons enough to like, pay for our hosting and things like that. But you guys have stepped up and you're paying for that for us. And it's fantastic. And it takes a little bit of the pressure off and gives us some more room to run. So if you would like to contribute, you can find a link to our Patreon on our website. We appreciate every single patron that we get. And the one thing that you can do for us this year, as it comes to a close, please tell people you know. There's nothing better for us than just word of mouth. Like, tell people that you know about us. Tell them why you like us, because that's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to find more listeners. And, because we can do all the shouting in the void we want on social media and things like that. But honestly, you guys that listen to us, you are how we're going to grow. So tell the people that you know, friend, enemy, frenemy, all of that.
God damn it, Derek. I like the tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a frenemy bit.
Talking about things we're going to do away with in 2019. I kid.
You wound me, Derek. This has been the Work-Life Imbalance Podcast. I'm Frank Eastman.
I am Derek Lewis.
And with that, for the last time in 2018, I think we're going to have to transfer you.
May
old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind. Was that what you were looking for, Derek?
Yeah, that was the thing I was going for. I never learned the words of Auld Lang Syne. You know what's so funny? Like, maybe funny is not the right word. I thought that, like, I didn't know that it was Auld Lang Syne.
Old Lane Signs.